Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to Beckenham, especially to all of you who travel considerable distances to be with us today in this historic pub this morning. And many of you, in fact, have not only come from across the country, but from other countries as well. These days, this pub is the Rat and Parrot, but to everyone here today, and for many of us, in fact, it'll always be the Three Tons. And the cultural cradle of the musical genius of David Bowie, Beckenham's own local hero whom we honour today. And about time too, I'm sure you'll all agree. But since no one, however famous they are, in the borough of Bromley will get one of our blue plaques in their own lifetime, it has been left to the tremendous efforts of Cliff Watkins and the Beckenham Copers Cope Residents Association who've made today's unique international event possible. Cliff and your residents group, thank you all for what you've done today on behalf of Bromley and Beckenham, and on behalf of David Bowie fans worldwide, to rightly honour one of the world's greatest living popular musicians, our hero, David Bowie. Ladies and gentlemen, David Bowie cannot be with us in person today, sadly, but you all know he's sent his very best wishes from his home in America. But we are honoured indeed to have two of David's closest friends from the late 60s and early 70s who helped him create the legendary Beckenham Arts Lab here in the Three Tons. So I ask you to warmly welcome Mary Finnegan and Christina Ostrom. And as Beckenham's mayor today, I have the unique and unforgettable privilege of asking Mary and Christina to perform the unveiling ceremony to our local hero, David Bowie. Mary and Christina.
Thank you, and hello everyone. Hi. Well, we're here to celebrate David Bowie's achievements, but we're also here to celebrate the people who joined him at the Three Tons to create that weird and wonderful phenomenon called the Beckenham Arts Lab. It happened in 1969, which was an appropriate year for a summer of love. It was the year when hippie culture was at its peak, the year of the first moon landing, the year John Lennon gave back his MBE, and the year when HRH Charles became the Prince of Wales. It was also the year when Mayor Holbrook joined the Labour Party. Yeah! 1969, that got a better laugh than my joke. 1969 was a year of high achievement and high ideals, and the year when the Arts Lab movement spread out across the country from its nucleus in Drury Lane. The Beckenham Arts Lab was part of that movement, and it grew out of its origins as a folk club because a lot of people wanted this to happen. David Bowie, Christina, her then husband Barry and I started the ball rolling, but it was the enthusiasm of the people who gathered around us that turned it into something more than weekend entertainment. So what was that something more? I guess the best way to describe it is an experimental space where people could test their creative impulses. There was very little structure, and the Arts Lab events were never very well organised. But within that free zone, extraordinary things happened, and some of them are still going strong. The psychedelic happenings of the 1960s and the Arts Lab movement were the birthplaces of multimedia. Music, video, light shows, drama, mime, poetry, puppetry and dance all put in an appearance in a glorious creative tapestry right here in what was in those days an unremarkable high street pub. We called the Beckenham Arts Lab growth, and that really did chime with the times. We grew our hair, we grew our talents, and we grew some interesting pot plants. Everyone who took part was eager to grow out of the straitjacket of suburban life and into a state of self-awareness. Young people blessed with a radical outlook in the 1960s were pioneers because they made it clear beyond doubt that they didn't want to grow into clones of their parents. They wanted to explore the world, they wanted to live very dangerously, and they wanted to find meaning. Most of us take these aspirations for granted today. But also, everyone I knew in those days wanted to have fun, and that was the reason why we adored Sunday nights at the Three Tons. Performers from all over London and the southeast turned into unveilings, drawn irresistibly to the magnet in Beckenham High Street. Some names you might recognise who played here include Peter Frampton, Mick Ronson, Tony Visconti, Dave Cousins and the Strawbs, Lionel Bart and Steve Harley, who's paying a return visit today, and I think we say hooray to that. And there were many less famous but equally talented musicians: Roger Wootton and Comus, George Underwood, Mox, Hutch, Robert Stevens, Amory Kane, Keith Christmas and Bridget St. John. And there was a chap called David Bowie, who in those days was less famous than some of the names I've just mentioned. But here, his career started to take off. This pub was the launch pad for Space Oddity, his first hit song, and most of the numbers on his second album were performed at the Three Tons for the first time. Janine, for example, and The Wild-Eyed Boy from Freechild, which he wrote for my son Richard. David Bowie was the energy and the inspiration behind the success of the Beckenham Arts Lab. We touched the lives of the whole community because we took our enthusiasm into the streets and into the parks. We did a series of concerts and talks at the Bromley Arts Centre, and we threw a free festival that crowned our Summer of Love and made a profit. In 1969, we believed we could change the world, and maybe, in some ways, we did. Most of us were moved by what happened during the time of the Beckenham Arts Lab. It shaped my life, and probably a lot of other people's too. And those other people, I have to confess that my memory's a bit blurred, but I do recall the master puppeteer Brian Moore, Nick Godwin, who produced the weekly newsletter with me, Chaz and Liz Lippiott, who did a bit of everything, a certain beautiful young woman called Mary Angela Barnett, and the late, great Spud Murphy. And there was Jamie Plummer, Dave Walkling, Susie Cartwright, Nita Bowes, Nick Jennings, and Dave Bebbington. These are names I remember. There are many more I've forgotten, but I can still see their faces. And it's totally brilliant that some of those original Arts Lab people are here today. Some of you may be wondering why David Bowie came to live in Beckenham in the first place, and Christina knows a bit about that, don't you?
Yes. Hi. David was a very old friend of my ex-husband, and he moved in with us in Beckenham, and Mary lived downstairs. And after he stayed with us for a couple of weeks, he became the lodger of Mary's. And that's about it, really. And then I did the ticket sales. I took everyone's money here. That's so many years ago.
Oh, it doesn't feel as if an awful lot has changed, apart from the inside of the pub, does it?
No.
So do you think we'd better pull that string now?
All right, then let's do it.
Woo! I'm going to hang on to you.
Yeah, right. Come across this road. There you go. Here it comes. So I think we're all going to go inside now.
Just come around a little bit, that's it.
That's on my back, actually.
Thank you. Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, I know. I want to.
Yeah.